so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Lord, I'm new here to be here somewhere.
Welcome and thank you for sharing what truly would be an historic day for all of us today. It is my honor to stand here and remind all of us that the reason for this occasion is to celebrate the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I am State Senator Emanuel Jones, and I am the chairman of the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council. We are grateful to have with us today Governor Nathan Deal and First Lady Ms. Sandra Deal. Thank you. And Governor, we look forward to hearing from you later in the program. I also want to recognize our good friend in the Senate, Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle, and of course the Speaker of the House, David Ralston, Secretary of State Brian Kemp, Attorney General Sam Olens, to all my colleagues, members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, the Georgia Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals, and other members of leadership in our great state, thank you for being here today. To the Atlanta Boy Choir and alumni who opened our tribute this morning with such wonderful music and have been a part of this great tradition since 1983, we thank you. I would like to ask at this time the members of our Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council to please stand as we acknowledge them. Ms. Rita Samuels, Mayor Bill Austin, William Austin, Ms. Christine Miller-Betts, Dr. Thomas Smith, and we also have three other members, former Representative Tony Collins and Delana Kotrova and Ms. Lauren Gala, who could not be here with us today, Gaia, sorry. And finally, I would like to introduce the newest member of our council, Department of Community Affairs Commissioner Camila Knowles. Commissioner, congratulations on your new assignment. I understand you've been on the job for 5 days. We look forward to working with you, and thank you to all of our council members as well. At this time, I would like to invite Reverend Charles Goodman of Tabernacle Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia, to please join us. And Mr. Speaker, we're glad to have you here with us today. Pastor Goodman.
May we bow for a word of prayer. Gracious God, once again, we are thankful to be in this place as we celebrate the memory of one of your drum majors of justice. We thank you for his life and legacy that still resonates in this place, in a place that is significant because it is a place of his home. We thank you for his family and their presence with us today. We also thank you for the leadership of this great state. We pray continued blessings upon them. And now, God, the reality falls upon us to continue to make the dream a truth, a dream a living reality that we live out every single day of our lives. This is our prayer. We utter it and ask it in the precious name of our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am so honored to participate in this day that honors a great American and son of Georgia who has made so many contributions to our state, and to our nation. I want to thank Governor Deal for making it possible for me to be here today. I know that our governor is a tireless supporter of Dr. King's ideals. He is focused on education and job opportunities for all Georgians. I think his most recent State of the State address is clear evidence of that. He has signed into law major criminal justice reforms that are saving lives and keeping families together. And Governor Deal is leading the effort to install permanent recognition of Dr. King on our Capitol grounds. I want to recognize both the governor and the First Lady for their commitment to education, community involvement, and volunteerism, all of which are cornerstones of the civil rights movement. Their philosophy of engagement and volunteerism goes to the very heart of Dr. King's approach. Without further ado, it is my great honor to introduce to you the governor of the great state of Georgia, Governor Nathan Deal.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Knowles. It's altogether appropriate that at the outset I pay my respects and my appreciation to the Atlanta Boy Choir and the alumni, and to Maestro Wolf. I always look forward to having them here in the Capitol. Y'all perform excellently. Once again, we gather in this historic building to pay homage to a beloved son of our state, a renowned American, a mighty voice in the civil rights movement, a husband, a father, a teacher, a preacher, but above all, a servant of the people. Although we are now almost a half-century removed from the time of his tragic death, his example, his legacy, and his excellent and eloquent words still endure. I began this inaugural week with a prayer service. Actually, before the prayer service, we had a day of service on Saturday. And the theme for the day of service, as well as the prayer service, came from 1 Peter 4:10, which reads as follows: Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Now, Reverend King surely would agree with those sentiments. Just listen to some of his public comments, and I quote, "An individual has not started living fully until they can rise above the narrow confines of individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of humanity. Every person must decide at some point whether they will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness." He also said, and this is widely quoted, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" Now, that was a man with a servant's heart. Yes, Dr. King is not just remarkable because he served others, but simply because of how he served. When he was met with fierce oppression, he responded with temperance and love. When he witnessed heartbreaking abuse and racism, he chose a path of nonviolence and restraint. Upon receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. proclaimed that, and I quote, "Nonviolence is the answer to the critical political and moral question of our time, the need for man to overcome oppression and violence without resorting to oppression and violence. Man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love." Now, these inspiring words rang true in this day, And I am therefore excited to announce that in recognition of his persistence in the face of hostility, his determination to see the ideal of equality realized for all people, and the indelible mark he left on this state and the entire world, the legislation that I signed into law is moving forward with a project to erect a fitting memorial for Dr. King on the grounds of the state capitol. With input from the King family, the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council, State Representatives Calvin Smyrie and Joe Wilkinson, the Georgia Building Authority, and others, this memorial will stand within eyeshot of the major thoroughfare that bears his name, in the foreground of what is now the front of the Capitol, a man who proved that the power of words far outweighs that of might. Dr. King's likeness will also be in eyesight of the Liberty Plaza that I will be dedicating here in just a few minutes. And it will be a plaza where people can freely express themselves for generations yet to come. So as we gather for this 30th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. State Tribute, we come together to do much more than commemorate the life of a great man, to remember his generous love of others, to recall his words of wisdom. We gather to rededicate ourselves to the spirit of selflessness by which he lived, and to share our talents with others in constructive fashions so that we may emulate his tireless example. It is with these sentiments in mind that I now happily present to the King family this proclamation declaring Monday, January the 19th, 2015, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Georgia. Thank you, and may God continue to bless us.
Good morning. I am honored to introduce our keynote speaker for this occasion. She is Dr. Christine King Farris. I am perhaps one of the best ones to introduce her because I know her so well. She is my grandmother. We met for the first time as I entered into the world at South Fulton Hospital. No, I didn't know it at the time, but I have seen the video footage of that moment. My grandmother was right there, as she always is, during the triumphant times and even the challenging times. She is right there for all of our family. It is no accident that she is the last standing member of the household into which she was born, the household of King, where she lived with her mother and father, Reverend and Mrs. Martin Luther King Sr., her maternal grandparents, Reverend and Mrs. Adam Daniel Williams, her grandmother's sister, Aunt Ida, and her two brothers, Martin Luther King Jr. and Alfred Daniel Williams King. My grandmother's eyes have seen a lot, and she has survived through so much. I guess you could say she was built to last. As the oldest child, she became a role model for her younger brothers. Her decision to step forward during a church revival meeting became the stimulus for a decisive movement in her brother's Martin religious life. He wrote about that experience. He said, "My sister was the first one to join the church that morning, and after seeing her join, I decided that I would not let her get ahead of me. So I was the next." Our speaker for the day excelled in education, attending Atlanta's Young Street Elementary School, Atlanta University's Oglethorpe Elementary and Laboratory High Schools, and Booker T. Washington High School. She also attended Spelman College, where she received a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics in 1948, which happened on the same day her brother Martin received his Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology from Morehouse College. She secured a Master's of Arts in the Social Foundations of Education and later a Master's of Arts in Special Education, both from Columbia's Teachers College. As she finished her pursuit of higher education, she looked forward to teaching in the public schools of Atlanta. But her initial applications with the Atlanta Board of Education were repeatedly denied. Her father later wrote in his memoir, Daddy King, that she was well qualified, but the board was angry because she had struggled. Her father later wrote in his memoir, Daddy King, that she was well qualified, but the board was angry because he had struggled for 11 years to equalize teachers' salaries, forcing white teachers to live on the same rates of pay that blacks work for. After her father called the mayor to intervene, she was welcomed to her first teaching position at W.H. Krogman Elementary School. She taught in the Atlanta Public Schools for 7 years, until the public school system forced her out because she was getting married, which was against their policy at the time. She went on to work as an adjunct professor at Morehouse College and Atlanta University, as an associate professor of education in Spelman College. In December of 1955, when her brother Martin Luther King Jr. was elected president of the Montgomery Improvement Association and designated the spokesman for the Montgomery boycott, her entire family was swept up in one of America's most exciting and meaningful historical movements. Throughout the civil rights movement, Dr. Farris volunteered her time and skills in support of her brother's leadership, often working behind the scenes at protest headquarters. She also took an active part in nonviolent demonstrations, including the historic Selma to Montgomery March for voting rights in 1965 and the March Against Fear in Mississippi in 1966. Though devastated when her brother Martin was tragically taken, she resolved that she would play an active role in efforts to ensure that her brother's life and teachings would not be forgotten. She joined with her sister-in-law, Coretta Scott King, in 1968 to begin planning for the establishment of a memorial center, archives, and library to commemorate his achievements and preserve his papers for the benefit of future generations. She became energetically involved in planning for what became the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Site and Preservation District. The preservation of her family's birth home, Ebenezer Baptist Church, her brother's permanent entombment, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, now a place of pilgrimage, attracting people from all over the world. She serves today as the King Center's vice chair and the King Center's longest-serving member. If that isn't enough, she just retired from Spelman College after 56 years as an associate professor of education and director of Learning Resources Center. She is the longest-serving faculty member in the history of Spelman College. She is now Professor Emerita. My grandmother is a devoted member of Ebenezer Baptist Church, a member of the trustee board, and founder of the Handbell Choir named in her honor. She is currently the longest-serving member of Ebenezer Baptist Church. Have you read any of her books? She has written several of them. My Brother Martin, now it is in its 6th printing. She also wrote Martin Luther King, His Life and Dream, a work text for educators, and March On, a children's book about the March on Washington, and through it all, her personal memoirs. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Lynx, and the National Alumni Association of Spelman College. Perhaps most important, she is the wife of Isaac Newton Farris Sr., a union that has lasted for 54 strong years and counting. She is the mother of Isaac Farris Jr. and mother of my mother, Dr. Angela Farris Watkins. And of course, she is most fond of her one and only grandchild. My grandmother is a humorous and creative lady who loves to read, shop, and spend time with family and friends. A bit of trivia, if you will. Did you know that our speaker gave her brother Martin the money to buy the engagement ring for his beloved Coretta Scott? She sang the opening anthem on the steps of the Alabama State Capitol at the end of the Selma March by special request of her brother Martin. She and her family accompanied her brother Martin when he received his Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, and through it all, she is still standing, still serving, and still moving. Please welcome a lady of strength, wisdom, and grace, Dr. Christine King Farris.
Thank you, my granddaughter, Farris Christine Watkins. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I have received, and I can truthfully say that I have received more than my share of experiences as the grandmother of Farris Christine Watkins. To my family, my daughter, Dr. Angela Watkins, my husband, Isaac Farris Sr., other friends, and to all gathered here today, I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to speak to you briefly. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be your speaker for the state of Georgia's tribute to my brother Martin Luther King Jr. I thank all of you for your participation in this joyful commemoration of the birthday of a Georgia-born and Georgia-raised man whose leadership transformed the nation. I stand before you today as the person who knew Martin Luther King Jr. longer than anyone now alive. In fact, I was right there in the home the day he was born on January 15, 1920. 29. It's been quite a journey from that cold January day, 86 years ago, and on down to the day when I first laid eyes on my brother. I watched him grow into a man who became a great hero of humanity, who provides hope and inspiration for freedom-loving people everywhere. But if somebody had told me when we were young that one day there would be a national holiday honoring Martin and a 30-plus foot statue of him on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., I probably would have encouraged that somebody to get some help. Yet, right now, there are young people growing up all over the world who have the potential to become great leaders. Great leadership can come from all kinds of surprising places. So I just want to say to all the young people coming up, great dreams can become true. And America is the place where you can make it happen. It does require hard work, dedication, and vision, but those qualities are available to everyone who is willing to make the commitment. My brother Martin, and if I slip and say ML, you'll know who I'm talking about because that's what we called boys then by their initials, so ML for Martin Luther. We had a normal brother-sister relationship growing up together with lots of affection. As youngsters, we sometimes gave each other a hard time, like sisters and brothers everywhere. But it never got out of hand because our father and mother ran a tight ship. I can tell you that even as a child, Martin showed leadership skills. As I think back on it, and as a teenager, he was already revealing that he had a creative approach to problem solving and a seriousness about social problems you didn't find in many young people, young men of his age. I think that Martin was a visionary even as a very young man. I think he had a dream of that beloved community deep inside of him, long before he was a renowned leader. There was something inside him that could not accept injustice, a voice that urged him to seek a better way. He was very much a truth seeker by the time he went to college. He enjoyed his social life as a college student. He was a good dancer and a snappy dresser who liked a good party as much as any of his fellow students. But at the same time, he took on his studies with an extraordinary seriousness. He read the Bible, the great philosophers and theologians with determination, not just to get good grades, but to understand their teachings and do something with what he learned. My brother and I went off to graduate school at about the same time. He went to Crozer Theological Seminary. I went to Columbia University, and he went later to Boston University, and of course before Boston to Crozer Theological Seminary. I received 2 master's degrees, and Martin got his PhD from Boston University. We wrote to each other and occasionally visited one another during this period. I could see that he was becoming quite a serious scholar, and it was at Crozer, near Philadelphia, where Martin had his first exposure to the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. In a short lecture that he attended that was not part of the required curriculum, my brother later wrote that the lecture delivered by Professor Mordecai Johnson, who had recently visited India, electrified him with a growing awareness that would later bear fruit in Montgomery, Alabama, when Martin first became leader of the civil rights movement and used some of Gandhi's tactics and philosophy. He later would write that Christ furnished the spirit and motivation, while Gandhi furnished the method of the civil rights movement. I want young people to note that this is an excellent example of how education can be a force for human liberation. Think of it. Martin Luther King Jr. attends an off-campus lecture out of intellectual curiosity, and he learns about Gandhi's method of nonviolent revolution, which became the cornerstone of the American civil rights movement. Never doubt that education is the key to social, economic, and political empowerment. Now, I don't want to characterize my brother as a mythic hero, because he was a flesh and blood human being. I am often asked what my brother was like as a person. It's a good question, and I enjoy answering it because Martin was truly a delightful person at the human level. He loved people, and he had the ability to make everyone feel good when they were with him. He had a great sense of humor, and he liked to make people laugh. I would urge everyone who is interested in Martin Luther King Jr. and wants to know what he was like, first to go to the source and read his books. Then read books by people who knew him well and who worked with him. Watch documentaries about him. I don't object to movies like Selma and other films about my brother and the civil rights movement. Most dramatizations about Martin have some good points, but also some things that those who knew him wouldn't recognize. That's just what the film industry does with historical figures. But if you want the real history, read Martin Luther King Jr.'s books. My brother wrote 6 books, and there are other excellent collections of his speeches and writings available to those who seek authoritative sources for researching his life and work. The King Center here in Atlanta also has a wonderful collection of primary source materials on Martin Luther King Jr. and the American Civil Rights Movement. It's okay to read biographies for insight about historical figures. Andrew Young and John Lewis have both written excellent memoirs which shed light on my brother's leadership. It's wise to consult the writings of people who were involved in the making of history before uncritically accepting as accurate the second-hand accounts of those who were not there and who did not know my brother or even speak with him. I often read descriptions of my brother, calling him an icon. That's just nonsense. That icon stuff is for those who put leaders up on pedestals. Martin was a man of extraordinary character, but he was a normal man who liked all kinds of people. He was completely unpretentious. He didn't act different toward anyone after he won the Nobel Prize for Peace. He would often stop and chat with people in the community on Auburn Avenue outside his office. He was not only a good talker, but a good listener. And anyone could come to him with a problem, and he would do what he could to help. My brother had a deep sense of patriotism. He loved his country, and when he marched for social justice, that displayed it. There was always an American flag behind him, and representing the true patriotism meant that you seek justice for all people. That's one reason why he led the Selma to Montgomery March for voting rights, which is depicted in the new movie Selma. He loved America, but he wanted our country to honor its best ideals. He liked the verse by the great African poet Langston Hughes, and who said, and I quote, "Oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be." Martin knew America had not yet honored its glorious promise, but he shared with Langston Hughes the determination that this promise must be honored, and he was going to do what he could to help make it happen. In Georgia, we are rightly proud that Martin Luther King Jr. was born and raised in our state and conducted one of American history's most important reform movements. right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And though we are proud of his leadership, we also recognize that there is plenty of room for reforms to help make Georgia a state that leads the way towards fulfillment of Martin's dream. For one thing, we can accept President Obama's challenge to make community colleges free, or at least affordable for all. We can also lead the way forward by making health care affordable and accessible for all of our citizens. We can put unemployed Georgians to work improving mass transit systems in Georgia's cities. As the movement progressed, my brother came to understand that nonviolence had important applications on a personal level as well as in social struggle. As he wrote in an article shortly before he was assassinated, taken from us, I quote, "I'm committed to nonviolence, absolutely, because I have found it to be a philosophy of life that regulates not only my dealings in the struggle for racial justice, but also my dealings with people, with my own self," end quote. And so, we must educate young people not only in the traditional academic areas that we defined as good preparation for achieving economic well-being, we must also teach them in every school on earth how to more effectively deal with conflict and resolve disputes. I think this will help them not only to avoid war, terrorism, and violent political conflict, it will also help them to keep their marriages together and have a healthy family life. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Georgia became a leader in meeting these challenges? My brother did not live to celebrate his 40th birthday, and his leadership of the American Civil Rights Movement lasted less than 30 years. Yet, in that relatively short time span, America achieved unprecedented progress toward genuine equality. His leadership had a global impact as well. Freedom movements in faraway nations, including China, Poland, the Philippines, Egypt, and South Africa, to name a few, have credited the Georgian we honor today with an inspiring example of leadership for their struggles for liberation. Last month, the King Center commemorated the 50th anniversary of my brother's acceptance of the Nobel Peace Prize. On that occasion, Klaus Nobel spoke at the King Center, and he said that he has traveled the world participating in programs honoring Nobel laureates, but he said that no recipient of the Nobel Prize for Peace has more churches, schools, or other landmarks named in his honor. When my brother received the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, he addressed the possibilities for applying nonviolence at the international level. And as we mourn for the victims of the terrorist violence in Paris last week, I believe his message on that day, a half-century ago, has a compelling relevance for our times. As Martin said, and I quote, "Sooner or later, all of the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace and therefore transform this pending cosmic elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. If this is to be achieved, man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation, he said, of such a method is love. I believe that even amid today's mortar bursts and whining bullets, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that wounded justice lying prostrate in the blood-flowing streets of our nation can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men. I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. End of Martin's quote. The latest tragic violence in Paris brings a reminder that we must do a better job of teaching the young people of all nations that terrorism is not the way to achieve freedom. Self-determination and human rights. We must promote greater understanding among young people that violence and terrorism cannot lift them out of poverty and deprivation, and that economic empowerment and opportunity can only be achieved through peaceful means. The Nobel Prize and all of the honors he received notwithstanding, Martin would want us all to affirm that his leadership was empowered by a philosophy and commitment that is available to everyone. That is the philosophy of nonviolence. Martin would want us to say on this day that nonviolence still provides our best hope for ending the violence and destruction that continues to plague our nation and world. And Martin would want us to say that this will be true forever more, because nonviolence is rooted in the universal principles of love, justice, and brotherhood. and sisterhood. And these values will never go out of style. There has been a lot of discussion lately about the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. as it might relate to the violence in police relationships to their communities and the rioting we saw in Ferguson, Missouri. My brother said on a number of occasions that violence is the language of the unheard. So it's important to listen to what the young people in the ghettos and barrios of America are saying, and it's important to listen to the police as well and to encourage them to explore nonviolent techniques of law enforcement. Here I would add that I'm very proud of my niece Bernice, who went to Ferguson and spent time listening to what the people of that community were saying. Not only that, she took a team of the King Center's nonviolence educators to Ferguson, and they taught 80 young people the principles of nonviolence my brother advocated. As a result, there is a growing dialogue about nonviolent alternatives in Ferguson that wouldn't be happening without her leadership. Bernice has also done an outstanding job of organizing the King Center's MLK Birthday Observance Program. The King Center's 2015 program is educating thousands of Georgians about my brother's teachings and methods of nonviolence, and many more people all over the world through our internet outreach and social media. And I would invite all of you to be present and join us on Saturday evening at the Hyatt Regency as we celebrate the Salute to Greatness Awards dinner. We will present the 2015 Salute to Greatness Award to President Bill Clinton and to Kaiser Permanente, with Chairman Bernard Tyson accepting. And we will also present the Coretta Scott King Awards to Mr. Arden Hornaday, founder of Arden Cares and the Tangelo Park Program. On Monday, January 15th, the nation will celebrate the 30th birth Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday, and the King Center will host its annual commemorative service, which becomes the flagship King holiday service for the nation at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Everyone is invited to attend. And our newest national holiday was achieved as a direct result of the leadership of the King Center under the direction of my late sister-in-law, Coretta Scott King. And Georgians can also be proud that once again, the King Center is leading the nationwide King holiday celebrations, setting the tone for the commemoration in every state. On the King holiday and throughout the year, the King Center has likely brought more visitors to Georgia than any other institution in our state. The King Center continues to serve as one of our state's most important places of pilgrimage for people from all over the world who are seeking hope and inspiration. Georgians are right immensely proud of Martin Luther King Jr. and his transformational leadership. But let's also be proud of the institution that has done more than any other to educate people all over the world about his life, work, and teachings. And so your support of the King Center will prove to be a cost-effective investment in Georgia's economic growth, cultural enrichment, and continuing spiritual upliftment. One of the most rewarding benefits of the King holiday is that America becomes a nation of Good Samaritans every third Monday in January. This wonderful tradition of service is taking root in the hearts of millions of my brother's followers nationwide. If we nurture this spirit of service, we can begin to create a just and compassionate society and a community of caring that includes every person of every race. My brother challenged us to reject what he called the darkness of destructive selfishness and choose instead to walk in the light of creative altruism. He said, life's most persistent and nagging question is, what are you doing for others? He said, life's most persistent and nagging question is, what are you doing for others? The King Center's founder, Coretta Scott King, once said that the greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate acts of citizens. Our charge is to reach out with a spirit of service to the impoverished and disadvantaged, the downtrodden and forgotten people in our community, the nation and the world. We must open our hearts and begin to see everyone in the community as a brother or sister in the human family. And those are wise words from the King Center's founder, Coretta Scott King. Inspired by this challenge, Georgians can lead the nation in providing community and humanitarian service on the King holiday. In this way, we can ensure that the 30th MLK holiday will serve Martin's legacy of public service and nonviolence in our state. If we meet this challenge with a spirit of unity and dedication, this great state of Georgia will provide other states with resplendent standard of excellence and a template for raising up the spirit of love, goodwill, and nonviolence that empowers Martin Luther King Jr. living legacy for us all. Thank you, and God bless you all.
she knows we were singing about it and then they're leaving. Okay, and then the boy choir sings this piece of music all over the world, and I invite the audience to sing with us. How many of you can sing? Now come on. When I turn around, you sing. Stand up. Everybody.
Thank you, everyone. I want to thank. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me? Is the mic on? The mic is off. Thank you, Dr. King Farris, for every. It's not on, is it? It's not. They turned it off. Okay, I'm gonna just do this. I'm just gonna move over here. Thank you so much, Dr. Christine, for everything that you said to us today. We appreciate it so much for you and the Farris and the King family for being present with us today. We are so grateful to have words from a living legend herself who gave us lifelong lessons today, and we are so grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you. You could do better than that for Dr. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you again, Dr. King Farris. Thank you so much for that. Now, let me do something real quick. She reminded us of what we need to do, not just as Georgia, but as a nation. And she reminded us how her brother did things that were not politically expedient, but he did things that were just and right and meet. And because of that, we can stand here today in this Georgia State Capitol. So we are very appreciative that you reminded us of the dreamer and the dream, and the movement did not stop because they tried to take away the dreamer. So thank you again for that. And you did an awesome job introducing your grandmother. So thank you. Was she not dynamic? Now we see where you get that from. Thank you. Thank you. So now I want to introduce the members of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. I am the chair of the Black Caucus, the largest Black Caucus in the nation. And we want all of the members of the Black Caucus to stand at this time, if you will. All the members of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. You give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like for our colleagues who also serve with us in the Georgia General Assembly for you to stand as well. Y'all, come on. Yes, the others who serve with us in the Georgia General Assembly. Thank you. And one more thing I want to do, because the time has gotten away from us now. Last year we were able to sign into law that a statue would be put on the grounds here at the Capitol. And we want to thank Representative Calvin Smiley, who led the charge on it along with Representative Tyrone Brooks. The governor has charged Representative Calvin Smiley with the task of getting the monument built. So he's putting together a coordinated campaign that will get that done, and we are so appreciative of that, because the person who has been recognized all over the world will now be recognized in his own hometown with the statue on the state grounds. And so we're appreciative of that. I want to thank Senator Jones for all of the work that he does with the ML King Advisory Council. Thank you so much for that, for getting it going. And I want to thank all of you for not giving up and always standing there and always being there, because this is not an easy fight, but it's one that we will keep going, because we know that there is so much at stake. We can't say that we love the dreamer and not try to follow and continue his dream. So we know we have to continue to work to make sure that everyone has fair wages, to make sure that everyone has a right to access to health care, and that our children are educated in the best ways possible. So on today, I thank you again for reminding us, Dr. Farris, of what it means to be a keeper of the dream. Yes. So thank you everyone for coming out on today.
I have the honor today of presenting some presentations and awards, but before I do, let me just thank the Farris family for being here today and contributing your life and your legacy and your spirit of your brothers with us today. The council has put together a very, very special award that we would like to share with you in recognition of your dedication, Ms. Christine King Farris, to the Civil Rights Movement. I'm going to ask if our council members will come up and stand with me, members of our caucus, as we present this award to Dr. Christine King Farris for your dedication to the Civil Rights Movement by the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council. I think it is only fitting that all of us join one in presenting this award to council members, legislators, council members. Please join us.
I am Christine Miller-Betts, the Executive Director for the Lucy Craft Laney Museum in Augusta, Georgia. I'm also a member of the Martin Luther King Jr. Council, and I serve as the awards chair. As director of the Lucy Craft Laney Museum of Black History in Augusta, I have a special interest in relating the events of the past to present and future generations. We know that Dr. King challenged his generation to improve the lives of fellow citizens through volunteering, through teaching the principles of nonviolence and peace, and through striving for social justice. We know many people across the state have accepted Dr. King's challenge by working successfully in their communities to bring people together. Part of the mission of our council is to promote Dr. King's legacy by recognizing the achievements of those people who have answered his challenge to our generation. Today, we are proud to announce the first recipients of the Martin Luther King Community Service Appreciation Award, which recognizes people and organizations that have answered Dr. King's call to service.
At this time, I would like to invite the members of the River Valley Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council to come forward. The Martin Luther King Advisory Council was enacted into law 4 years ago and signed by Governor Deal. We had a mission of creating regional councils across the state. There's one council that quickly accepted that vision, and today we recognize the River Valley Commission for being the very first in the state to accept the mission that's created in Martin Luther King Jr. Regional Commission. Now, on behalf of the council, I'd like to present this proclamation. It reads as follows. Whereas the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council is in charge by the Georgia General Assembly and the Governor of Georgia to promote and support Dr. King's legacy. And whereas the River Valley Martin Luther King Advisory Council has been nominated for recognition of outstanding community service that honors the nonviolent principles and teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And whereas the nomination has been recommended for approval. Now, therefore, the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council, having considered the nomination on this 16th day of January 2015, does hereby confer this certificate of appreciation for outstanding community service in the River Valley Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council.
First of all, I'd just like to thank Senator Emanuel Jones for his vision and for pushing for having various councils, Martin Luther King Jr. advisory councils throughout Georgia. His motive is to pass on all the values that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. espoused. Secondly, I'd like to also thank Ms. Patty Cullen, who's the director of the River Valley Regional Commission, assistant director Ms. Walls, and every member here, assistant chair, Mike Speight. But I want to thank you again, sincerely, for starting something like this here, and for pushing and having things like this established. Thank you so much.
Since the River Valley Martin Luther King Advisory Council was formed in 2012, this organization has worked to document the experiences of people in the 16-county River Valley region during the Civil Rights era, and to create video archives that will capture and preserve their stories. Columbus State University is assisting the council with the interviews that will reflect both black and white perspectives of their historical time. This important historical record will then be available to the state archives, local libraries, and colleges. Another part of their work of the River Valley Martin Luther King Advisory Board is a second project supporting the River Valley Regional Commission and Sumter County to obtain a Georgia historical marker. That marker will be placed at the location where Dr. King was incarcerated in Americus on December 16, 1963, following his arrest in Albany after a non-permitted civil rights march in that city. Chairman Barnes, I know that you and the members of the River Valley Luther King Advisory Council were proud to announce recently that the Georgia Historical Marker will be dedicated at a ceremony in Sumter County on April the 11th of this year. And we will certainly be there.
Thank you. On behalf of the council, I'd like to present this award to the chair, Jerry, who we know in the Columbus area as Pops Barnes, for your leadership and support of the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council, River Valley Council. Pops, please come forward. Chairman Randy Howard. For your leadership and support of the Martin Luther King Jr. Advisory Council, I present this leadership for your team. Thank you. Vice Chair Mike Speight, for your leadership and support on behalf of the King Jr. Advisory Council. This final award goes to not an individual, but it goes to the River Valley Regional Commission. They again were the very first commission in the great state of Georgia to form an advisory council underneath the Martin Luther King Jr. statewide advisory council. So please, on behalf of the council, I want to ask the council members that are present to come up and join with me as we present this award to the River Valley Regional Commission for your support as the Martin King Jr. Advisory Council. Indeed, you all were the very first in putting together the Advisory Council, and as chair, I cannot thank you enough for all your efforts in furthering the life and legacy of the man and the people today, the Reverend Dr. Martin King Jr. and Commissioner Knowles, and to I have the honor of closing out this ceremony, but I can't close this ceremony out without again expressing special thanks to our featured speaker today. We're going to ask that we all stand and applause again for one of Georgia's greatest scholars. I can't